So I say, let's celebrate the fact we have imposter syndrome, right? Elvis Presley had imposter syndrome. He used to vomit and his legs would shake before he went on stage. But he turned those shaking legs into a trademark. And look at the gifts Elvis gave to the world. And Oprah, you just go through the list. Everyone has imposter syndrome. So it's the ability to recognize this is what's happening in my brain right now. And then looking back at all the wonderful things you did to get to where you are today.
That was a clip from my upcoming guest, Sheri Jay. And in this candid conversation, Sheri shares her remarkable journey from a career in corporate Canada through life-changing health challenges to becoming a passionate advocate and coach for neurodivergent individuals. Drawing on her expertise in neuroscience and her own lived experience with invisible disability, Sheri discusses the unique challenges faced by women navigating menopause, especially those with neurodivergent traits or brain injuries, and how late diagnosis and masking can impact confidence as well as well-being. You will discover how Sheri's innovative coaching methods, including solution-focused techniques and creative tools like the Lego Serious Play, help clients embrace their strengths, overcome imposter syndrome, and build new pathways to joy and fulfillment. Our conversation also explores the intersection of neurodivergence, menopause, and workplace dynamics, offering practical insights for individuals and organizations seeking greater inclusion and belonging. So whether you're seeking personal growth, navigating change, or supporting others through the transition, this episode promises actionable wisdom and heartfelt encouragement from a very passionate leader, Sheri, about empowering women to thrive at this phase in life. But before we begin, here's something you need to know about Sheri. Sheri Jay is a life coach who specializes in working with neurodivergent individuals, and she draws upon her own experiences with anxiety and imposter syndrome and the impact of a stroke and brain injury. Sheri is active in professional disability networks and emphasizes the importance of belonging, especially in the military and corporate environments where masking neurodivergent traits is so very common. She has a unique coaching approach, which is highly specialized, highly individualized, and she meets her clients right where they are at, addressing each and everyone's unique goals and situation. Along with the Lego Series Play, Sheri also incorporates the Principles U personality assessment to celebrate individual strengths and improve team dynamics. Her clients range from athletes to executives, and she notes that issues like imposter syndrome and perfectionism are completely universal, often exacerbated during the life transitions such as menopause. You can learn more about Sheri's coaching and offerings on her website at sherijay.ca, and you can find her on Instagram at Sheri Jay Coaching. Sheri also has a YouTube channel, Sheri Jay Coaching. All of those links will be in the show notes. Please join me in welcoming Sheri to the Menopause Disruptor podcast. Well, welcome, Sheri, to the Menopause Disruptor podcast. We're going to have an interesting conversation about executive coaching. So first of all, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
So Sheri and I met out on the street one day. You were out visiting in the Comox Valley, and it was because of our dogs. I had my grandbaby, my little dachshund, Lenny, and he took a fond liking to the dog you were with. And lo and behold, we were just attracted to each other's energy and started talking about this world of menopause and the work that we're doing. You are doing some really interesting work, particularly for neurodivergent conditions. Before we get there, tell us all about your backstory, Sheri.
Well, my backstory, I was going to start my backstory with working in corporate Canada, but my backstory goes back even further. I had done a degree in psychology, loved neuroscience, wanted to pursue a master's and PhD, didn't follow my passion and went into business. And then I went into a corporate Canada job for 12 years in the investment industry. And I virtually left on a wheelchair. I had a chemical injury and I had a stroke, I had a brain injury. I became disabled for a number of years. And And then I ran a dog walking business for 20 odd years. The forest was super healthy for me, walking and not being in the corporate environment. Pandemic happened. Everybody stayed home with their dogs. And I had to pivot again. And someone actually suggested life coaching or executive coaching. Had I ever thought of it? And I hadn't, but I looked into it. And my passion has always been to help people. I'm a hyper empathetic. I became a life coach. And then I went back into neuroscience and specialized in the neuroscience of coaching. So back full circle to my passion. And through that, I'm neurodivergent. I have family members who are neurodivergent, whether that's, autism, ADHD, brain injury. The neurodivergent umbrella is quite large, and discovered one, that I have a passion and love coaching people who are neurodivergent, and also that I'm really good at it. There's great results. So I call myself a coach for people with busy brains, and that when your brain is not, so sometimes our brain isn't our best friend, right? Sometimes our brain gets in our way, whether that's negative self-talk, anxiety, perfectionism, imposter syndrome. And I've lived with that my whole life: anxiety, imposter syndrome, and negative self-talk. And that's how I got to where I am today.
Wow, that is quite the journey. And I should say, because this is my neurodivergent brain, do you go by Sheri or Sheri Jay?
I go by both. My last name is Jay, and it goes so well together that some people just call me Sheri Jay.
I think that's another reason why I love your energy, because I get called Mary Lee all the time, when in fact Lee is my last name, but it's such a beautiful term of endearment. I had to ask because I went to your website, and I just love your website, full of details. Big font too, for people who do have neurodivergent traits. Big font helps.
Yes.
That aside, Sheri Jay, I'm really quite interested. You told us, you shared with us, though, that you have neurodivergency as well, and within your family member as well. When did you finally feel like this was an underserved, vulnerable population that needed to be better well served so that they could thrive in their lives?
Well, it's interesting. It's all part of, we call season of life, and part of that journey. I hid my disability for so long because it was embarrassing. I had come from an athletic background. Well, corporate Canada, type A personalities. I was a mountain biker. My partner of 28 years was in the professional road cycling scene. I was around a lot of strong people, and suddenly I was overnight disabled. And people were uncomfortable with that. They don't like thinking about the fact they might end up there. But many people who are disabled are not born disabled. So I spent a long time hiding my disability or minimizing my disability. And in my coaching journey, as I said, I discovered I just love helping this population, which I'm a part of. But I became part of a professional disability network called Profound, and started working with leaders and people who multiple disabilities, whether it's neurodivergence, blind, deaf, wheelchair users. And had so many people say to me, thank you for speaking up about your invisible disability, because it gives me the courage to do the same. And I came to a place. So I find it interesting that I'm late in life, really, that I've discovered my passion for work, but I've also discovered to stand up for who I am. And I am a person who lives with an invisible cognitive disability. And I had that with my website. People said, don't put on your website that you've had a stroke and you have a brain injury. Who would want a coach who has a brain injury? But it doesn't mean I'm not capable, and it doesn't mean my clients aren't capable. My brain, I needed some help to create new neural pathways after my stroke. I had trouble retrieving words. I used to watch Jeopardy. You wouldn't know by how fast I speak now, but I couldn't retrieve my words. And I would watch Jeopardy every day to retrieve my words. And so neuroscience is creating new neural pathways. And so I created new neural pathways. Book Stroke of Insight, woman discusses this as well, that had a stroke. Created new neural pathways and rejuvenated my brain, because I had doctors say, you're disabled. There's nothing more we can do for you. Stay at home and stay in bed. And that's not that wasn't an option for me. So
No.
Here I.
Wow. No, it's quite interesting, Sheri, that so far Some of the top download episodes of the Menopause Disrupted podcast have dealt with neurodivergent traits, such as my episode on ADHD, one on autism. Then I did a personal one on PTSD and trauma. And then there's been an episode on the cross section between neurodivergence and menopause and ADHD. When that comes to the forefront, that was an amazing episode as well. And I realized we're on to something. My journey through the menopause doula and menopause education and now coaching, I've come to realize too that we could have had these injuries or these conditions and learn those neural pathways, as you speak of, quite cleverly to find a way to circumnavigate around the illness or the condition or the trait. As one of my previous guests calls, it's just a trait like blue eyes or brown eyes. But we become very clever at finding those new pathways. And then all of a sudden, menopause comes along with estrogen as the great protector. It's no longer there. And the veil is lifted. And la voila, we are facing things that we're thinking, like for me in particular, dyslexia. I thought I had this in the bag years ago. And now as a communicator too, a career in communications, you need to know your words. But all of a sudden it was coming back, but not just a little bit. It was tenfold and I still could not see it. I catch things all the time. It's like, why can't I see this? So have you discovered or when you're working with your clients, a lot of people are now facing this, confronting this maybe for the first time of a condition that has been there maybe before without even having an injury. And tell us a little bit about that experience with working with those clients, with the nuanced conditions, complexity with a neurodivergent trait and menopause.
Well, first of all, there's a lot of late diagnosis, particularly in women, for autism and ADHD, neurodivergence, that people live their entire lives masking and trying to fit into society, which comes at a great cost, right? Great energy cost. And they can often do it until maybe it's menopause where they can no longer do it. So the late diagnosis for women is huge. So sometimes you don't even know you have it your whole life because you're masking and trying to fit in. But the amount of anxiety and stress that goes along with having to mask that is massive. And then hitting menopause and everything gets that much harder. So the stress and anxiety goes through the roof. And that's one thing I help my clients with is dealing with a late diagnosis and then dealing with understanding what's happening in your body and brain when you're under stress and how to manage it.
Wow. So let's talk about that a little bit. I would really like to understand more about your unique coaching program. Maybe walk us through a little scenario of how you meet your clients exactly where they're at so that they can embrace their situation and have a little bit more courage to address it and to feel like they have empowerment to move forward.
Well, I first of all meet them where every person's going to come with a different goal, and every coaching session is custom to what they want in the moment. And whether it's coming and wanting something let's say it's an executive coaching, it's related to work, but it always ends up coming back to who you actually are, right? And what's going on in your brain. So especially with someone who's neurodivergent, to actually, some clients come to me who have ADHD and they've been beating themselves up for years because they think there's something wrong with them. And when they understand what's actually happening in their brain, and this is common to everyone with ADHD, it's a huge sense of relief, right? And then we usually start with dealing with anxiety and stress,
right?
And then moving forward to create what they've always wanted to create. And sometimes fast process, and sometimes it's slow. It depends on every individual.
So I was just going to ask, in different individuals in different vocations, for example, you work with athletes to corporate leaders. How does the approach differ depending on what environment that they're in or where they're trying to excel in, whether it's sports or in career?
well. And whether you're an athlete or an executive, it's actually pretty much the same. So when you're talking about mental performance, and you can be an executive at the highest level and you
Mhm.
might have a confidence issue, and you can be an athlete at the highest level and you have a confidence issue. And it could be, I'm going to a bike race in Europe for the first time, imposter syndrome.
Ah.
I'm an executive. I just got a new promotion, a little bit of imposter syndrome. So it's actually exactly the same.
So, how do we deal with imposter syndrome? Because I know that this is going to hit a real chord with many of the listeners, particularly those professionals and those high performing, achieving women who are now in menopause at the peak of their career and are looking for that next advancement, that next promotion. And they're going to step into something pretty powerful that they've been working their whole career for. And then all of a sudden, one of the things that happens with menopause is our confidence plunges. So, how do you address imposter syndrome?
Well, first of all, Dr. Adam Grant, who wrote the book Hidden Potential, I love Dr. He's one of my favorite neuroscientists, says everybody has imposter syndrome unless you're a sociopath or a psychopath. So I say, let's celebrate the fact we have imposter syndrome, right? Elvis Presley had imposter syndrome. He used to vomit and his legs would shake before he went on stage, but he turned those shaking legs into a trademark. And look at the gifts Elvis gave to the world. And Oprah, you just go through the list. Everyone has imposter syndrome. So it's the ability to recognize this is what's happening in my brain right now. And then looking back at all the wonderful things you did to get to where you are today, right? And then on an individual level, I work with, it's going to be different questions for every person, but to tap back into that confidence and look at, I'm a solution focused coach. So let's say I said, okay, Mary, related to this, what's your confidence right now between 1 and 10, with 1 being not at all and 10 fully and completely? And you answered 5. I would start asking you questions like, what would a 6 look like?
Oh,
What would
wow.
be different if you were at a 6, both
Oh,
in what you're doing and how you're feeling? And you paint me that vision and picture. And then we go to a 7. And then maybe let's go to an 8. What would that look like? And what would be different? And then based on what you've telling me, we would tap into some of those things that you can action.
that is great. So, the vision casting by allowing the client to actually imagine that what they want is entirely possible by sort of planting it in their mind right now and to forecast exactly, oh, okay, this is what I could possibly be achieving or be at. I love that idea.
Yes. And I do with some clients, I do guided meditation.
Oh,
Uh,
beautiful.
So in this case, I would probably use a meditation called The Truth Is Honestly I. And it would be about 12 minutes where they are guided and they go inside and then they journal and they would come out. The truth is, I'm competent and confident, and this is why, right?
Yeah, this is beautiful. With the Love Your Brain. So I became a Love Your Brain yoga teacher, took my level 1, and then I said, I love this too much. I want to go on to become a facilitator. Just completed that training. I've been offering some classes now, very much online. Neurodivergent individuals can certainly benefit from it, but the focus has always been on those with a brain injury, a traumatic brain injury, and one that's acquired rather than something that has come from as a result of a condition that they're already might be born with, perhaps, but this would be from somebody who's received it from a blow to the head or possibly even stroke. And so we have been learning the power of that positive affirmation by that intention. Always make it in the present. I am, not as in you're hoping for it in the future, but you are right now. You have the goal, but right now, no matter what the situation, you are, I am sort of thing. So I found that to be very impactful, very powerful. And I was hoping, Sheri, that you can maybe enlighten us with why that taking things to the present right now. What happens in the wiring in the brain when we speak in the positive present tense?
Well, I think people often say I should or I could, which is very much extrinsic value. So a lot of people, which that's what when I say that I went on to do a business degree when I wanted to do neuroscience, that was extrinsic family pressure, like businesses is where you should go. So when you live from the I shoulds, you're not living in integrity. You're not living in alignment with what your true values are, right? So when it's like, I am, then you're tapping into who you want to be. That's why that is so important.
Wow, that's incredible. Very curious. See on your website, once again, I was scouring to find out some interesting facts about this coaching technique. And I came across your tool, Lego Serious Play. And you had actually mentioned that to me when we met each other for the first time on the street. So tell us about how integrating this tool enhances the coaching process, especially for individuals with a neurodivergent trait. And I guess those navigating imposter syndrome or navigating change.
Well, so Lego Serious Play, I have a number of clients who are neurodivergent, who are not that verbal, or think about the executives who are very much in their head and not into their feelings and body. And I discovered Lego Serious Play and fell in love with it immediately. It did the certification for specifically that purpose, to coach individuals who are neurodivergent. But when I took the certification, I realized in a group or team, it levels the playing field from janitor to CEO, neurodivergent to neurotypical, extrovert, introvert. Everyone has a voice. And so you're letting your fingers do the talking. And when you're building, you have insights, but then when you describe your build, you're having insights upon insight. So it's an incredibly effective way to go inside. And the first time I used it with a young man who's neurodivergent in his 20s, he said, I just discovered feelings I never knew I had. So people, in my experience, people who I've coached, whether they're neurodivergent or neurotypical, it's just this really exciting way to uncover things. So it's the same coaching that I do verbally, but we build. So you build Lego, start with what's your current challenge today? And then what if, wave a magic wand if you could have it any way you wanted. So again, solution focused. Okay. And then we go from there. That's incredible. And sometimes my neuroscience tools, when we talk about people being really stressed, one tool I use often is the just right life. So people are often in too much, like way too much stress, which their cognitive function is not perfect, right? When you're in flow, you're hitting all your marks. You know what that flow feels like. But when you're in too much, you can't function properly. And so with Lego, we can build the too much life, the too little life, and then the just right life, which is where you want to be.
So this is actual Lego sets, or is it something specialized?
Well, it's Lego, yes. So it's from Lego. This is trademarked by Lego. Okay. Lego Serious Play. They were losing market share to Barbie and G.I. Joe way back when, which is hard to believe. And the executive sat down with Lego and figured out how to save the company, which they obviously did really well. And then they trademarked the coaching modality. And so they're called Explorer Discovery bags, and they're just little bags, and everybody gets the same bag of Lego and a base plate, and then you build. And the other wonderful thing is you end up with an artifact. So I say this, you go to a training, you go to a workshop, you're all motivated, you're jazzed, and you walk away and you forget everything, right? The next day it's like gone. You're back to your daily grind. But when you walk away with this piece of Lego, you never forget what you learned.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a living model to proof. You look at it every day, say, yes. So what do your clients build? Like, can you build just about anything? Like, I don't know, something from Star Wars?
Well, it's what the client brings. So I actually was just in Vancouver and I had a Lego Serious Play for a culture club. And so they asked me to create a coaching workshop around different cultures. Everybody came, Denmark, Holland, different countries, bringing their culture into today. And the end result at the end of the hour was connection, community. Everybody wanted to bring the connection and community they had from their culture into their present life. So it depends on what the client wants. And then we create, whether it's a workshop or one-on-one, create the questions, but same Lego kit, different builds.
They can build anything that they want to within their imagination, or is there like a set design?
They build anything within their imagination based on their goal. But I always say build for a maximum of 5 minutes, because if someone is a perfectionist, they're going to want to build for 20 minutes. And I also, you have, let's say 60 Lego blocks and no more, because if you're a perfectionist, you might want to build for 20 minutes and use 300. So there's no right or wrong in Lego. You can let that go. Actually, I've coached people who have perfectionism with Lego, and they feel it's like, oh, I can let that go. I just build for 5 minutes. Well, I should put that into every other part of my life. Give myself a time limit, and not, because if you have perfectionism, it's almost like you have a wall, and all this doesn't get done because you're so afraid of making a mistake. So in Lego and in my coaching, I learned fail forward, because the more you fail, the more you learn and the more progress you're making. When you can learn to embrace making mistakes, that's part of learning. And when we're children, we fall on the ground and we jump up and we don't judge ourselves. But as adults, we judge ourselves.
That's so true. And that ties it back in with, again, the imposter syndrome, or all eyes are on me because I'm holding this position of authority or of importance. All eyes are on me. There's no room for failure. And certainly coming from a military background, that can-do attitude, and you better not fail.
So that is our brain getting in our way, right? So when we can identify when our brain is getting in our way, learn tools to move forward and past it, then we can use our brain as our superpower versus our kryptonite.
That is so good. Oh, wow. And of course, we know that perfectionism is a trauma response in so many ways. And I think women, circle women that I have come across now, that is a common trait, flaw, if you will, that we are always striving for yet another learning journey, another course, something more to learn, because I'm not quite there. I'll be accepted. I'll be an expert. I can be perfect at my craft, my trade, my vocation, if I just get some more credentials behind me. And we're always chasing after something that, and you can explain, is probably inherently there all the time, but we somehow have silenced that voice, that inner child that's always knowing all along what we're destined for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, synchronicity, when we figure out what we're destined for, and when we can accept who we are, we have a negative bias, and that is a survival mechanism, right? If we go back to when lions and tigers and we were in the wild, we had stress was there for a reason so that we could survive. But when that stress response is amplified, whether it's perfectionism, negative self-talk, perfection, all of those things, that stress is out of control. So that's when we're in that too much space, right? Mm-hmm. And so to learn what's happening in our body, and we need stress, the right amount of stress to get things done. So figuring out that place, which is letting go of that negative self-talk and replacing it with positive self-talk, increasing our self-confidence, we can then move forward.
So how do corporations, and I guess this is for individuals too, how do they know that they need to take on this training? How do they know that they need a Sheri Jay to come into their corporation to give them the tools, the skill sets to be able to overcome some of their issues, whether it's collectively as the corporation or the individual trying to move forward and excel in their career or their athletic endeavors?
Well, you used the word courage earlier in our conversation. Mm-hmm. So what it is whether you're an individual or a team, if you're frustrated or stuck, I don't know if you've ever heard of the 7 levels of effectiveness, but when you're in a negative space, which is, fear, frustration, hopelessness, courage is the first positive step. And so when you have the courage to realize, okay, I'm stuck in the same space and I'm not getting anywhere, you have the courage to work with someone who's like a third party ear to help you get up to positive emotion, positive action. That's when you're ready.
Interesting. All right. So, also, one of the things that struck me on your website too is what you call, and make sure that I have the name right, the Principles U Personality Assessment. Can you share more about that and how it supports your clients' growth?
Sure. Well, first, I'll tell the story of why I picked that assessment.
Yes.
So I had a client, an adult client who had autism, and she had been asked, or she did an EQI assessment, and I was asked as her coach to sit in silently when she was debriefed. So I had a silent partner, and then she and I could work on anything that came up in future coaching sessions. And most people who are neurodivergent have higher anxiety than the rest of the population for what I mentioned before. And they brought up the coach who debriefed her, said that, what did you notice when you took the assessment? And she said, it didn't take my neurodiversity into account. And the woman just, okay, fine, blew that off. The assessment results came up and it was very left to right, which my client took as, I'm a loser, I'm a failure, I'm all on the left-hand side, right? There was nothing in the middle, there's nothing on the right. The coach would ask 30, 40 word questions, and my client would completely lose the gist of and say, could you please repeat that? So when you need to have short questions, very short. And my client went into complete anxiety attack and it was horrible. I walked away from that looking for an assessment that was empowering for everybody. And I looked everywhere and I found Principles U, which happens one of the creators is Dr. Adam Grant, who I've already mentioned and I respect, and Ray Dalio, who had the Bridgewater, and Dr. Brian Little. And it's very inclusive, and it's all these islands of archetypes, and it's very empowering, and there's no weakness. It's growth areas and strength. And whether you're at one end or the other, there's strengths to each for all the traits. So let's say introvert, extrovert, there's positive in all. And that's why I picked it. So I use this with clients as it's a place to start getting to know yourself, because in the coaching journey, really what you're doing, it's a journey of self-discovery and change. And it's a starting point to figure out what you want to change, what you don't, what you're happy with. And so I often use this in, first 1, 2, or 3 conversations, we'll do this assessment. And then teams that are stuck, it's a great way to have a conversation, to have traits without pointing fingers. It's like, here I am on the spectrum, and here you are, and this is what I need when I work with people, and this is what I need. It's a way to have an open conversation. And also in regards to diversity, if you plot, let's say your executive team of 10, and everyone's always in the same place, and there's nobody on the other end of the spectrum or in the middle, it's like our team. A great team isn't made up of 10 exactly the same individuals. You need all the different traits to make a good team. And that's what I love about Principles U, because it shows you all of that. And it shows you the you, the us, and the culture.
So I would imagine first for the individual, it probably creates a sense of acceptance and empathy or compassion for oneself, better getting to know yourself a little bit better, perhaps even for the first time. I would say this is a perfect time to break for a word from our sponsors. Guess what? You, my listeners, are my sponsors. That's right. I would love it if you could support the show. Helping me will help bring these amazing episodes to you each and every week, just packed full of information to help you on your menopause journey. And to support the show, all you have to do is go into the show notes and click just above where you read Meet Your Host. In green is Support the Show. You click on the button and it'll bring you to a page where you have the option to donate monthly, 3, 5, 8, 10. You can be a loyal supporter for as long as you want with recurring fee as little as $3 a month and opt out at any time. Each investment goes directly back into producing episodes with even better content, improved audio quality, and will go a long way in bringing great guests onto the show.
Yes. So when I did my training, I reached out to HR professionals, 10 different HR professionals to sort of practice with. And all of them came back to me saying, we've done every assessment, out there. And people walk around at such and such an office with sort of Myers-Briggs initials on their name tag. Like, we're over this. And every single one of them said, wow, this one's different. And one gentleman said, all the traits for my whole life that I was embarrassed about, by doing this assessment, I realized they're to be celebrated and I'm a good human being.
Oh, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. In the workplace then, and with corporate teams, I would imagine then this is the ultimate of seek first to understand before being understood. You'll understand now why your executive assistant, she or he may do things a certain way, and you're a type A personality and they're more methodical, maybe introverted, but they're exactly who you want to pick up the small details, like your spelling errors, for example. But is it they arrive at a place where, oh, now I understand why you do what you do or are the way you are at work?
Yes, exactly. And Lego Serious Play does that as well. I just coached an executive team on values and vision, where they walked out of the session, one realizing they thought they were all at odds, that they have the same values and vision, but had been using different language. The Lego helped them see that, but also the building of the Lego, understanding, they're like, I didn't know that about the other executive, but watching them build Lego and how they sort their Lego makes me understand how they need to work.
Beautiful. I would imagine, and my mind is just racing now. Have you ever worked with, or could there be an opportunity to work with town councils and municipalities?
I have not, but I know other Lego Serious facilitators who have. Yes.
Oh, wow. Because, we often see a lot of bureaucracy slow things down when it comes, especially in towns where we need to see change and growth and development. New ideas are coming fast and furious. Our communities are growing fast and furious. And we just feel like, oh, if just our counselors could just learn to get along. Yeah, that would be quite amazing.
Would be quite amazing.
Yes. So now in your own personal journey, when you started this work, where were you, I'm curious, on your menopausal transition, and has your line of work really helped shaped or assisted in your transition?
Well, interesting question. So when I signed up for the life coaching, it was at 7 p.m. at night, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I was so tired and mentally fatigued. I thought, I can't do this. Like, how am I going to do this? The first few classes, it was virtual. I actually turned the camera off and laid on the floor. But what it helped me do is reactivate my brain and energy. So I would say on the menopausal journey, I was towards the end of it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But it won the passion and purpose. And two, like, going into these classes, I'd been in the forest for 20 years with dogs, and I had a brain injury and I had not used computers. And the 19 other people in my class were HR professionals who knew how to use Jamboard and, all these things I'd never heard of. But I created the neural pathways and the energy because I'm passionate about it.
Wow. Yes. Well, it definitely shines through. So for somebody who's curious to start working with you, what would be the first step for them to take to explore what it would be to work with your unique coaching program? Where should they begin?
Well, they would begin by setting up a discovery call. So I have a complimentary discovery call where we can look at what the logistics are, have a sample of my coaching, because not everyone's going to jive with me, and I'm not going to jive with everyone, right? So if I think they're served by someone else better, I would refer them. So we'd have a complimentary coaching session. If it's a corporation, it would be talking about where they're stuck and what their goals are and what would be best, principles you, principles us, Lego serious play. Yeah, that's where it would begin.
Yes, well, we'll make sure that we get your website link in the show notes for sure. But there's an interesting area that you do work in. You haven't mentioned it yet, so I'll bring it up. You volunteer coach for Up With Women, whose mandate is to help women and diverse gender individuals rebuild careers after violence, homelessness. And tell us all about that work you're doing.
Well, I have 4 volunteer gigs.
Okay.
Really important to give back.
Yeah.
So I volunteer, I coach aspiring Canadian cyclists. I do team coaching once a month with Bridge the Gap. They help bridge the gap between amateur and pro. But Up With Women is really important to me. And I coach people who are neurodivergent. So I specifically ask for clients who are neurodivergent. And these women are dealing with, some of them are homeless, some of them are housing insecure, income insecure. And the objective is to get them to be secure in those areas. The woman who founded this is neurodivergent herself and was homeless at 16.
Oh,
so she started this in Toronto, and they now coach across the country. There's coaches across the country and clients across the country. And so once a year, I have a new client, and we work together twice a month for 12 months. And yeah, it's near and dear to my heart. And I also coach with, it's an American organization coaching US vets, military vets. So my father, career military. I grew up on military bases. As you know, I have lots of friends who are career military. And that's also really important to me. And again, my clients are neurodivergent, transitioning from the military into civilian life.
Oh my goodness. That, Sheri, could be an entire episode all on its own. Neurodivergency in the military. That's such you think it, but 2 things couldn't be more opposite, right? And that is definitely one area where you have to learn how to mask and hide.
Yeah, NASA knows the value of people who are neurodivergent, and they love hiring people who are neurodivergent. So that's interesting too, isn't it?
Yeah, very interesting. And yet, when you sign up, you have your assessments. It's all cookie cutter, that you have to fit this mold. And so those traits that you might have that you've learned to deal with or may not even understood what you had, and you become a little bit of an outlier. So you learn how to fit back in that bell curve. And like I had said earlier, when you have the change of life, all of a sudden that masking doesn't work anymore. But I would imagine that there's been a real acceptance now and an awareness of that diversity, inclusiveness, quality, that everyone who comes to the table can perform, no matter what their personality or their neurodivergent trait, is a valuable asset to the organization.
Absolutely.
Have you seen that shift, having a military background yourself, being in company of a lot of friends who military background, as you mentioned? Have you seen that shift come full circle where we are now at the end of more of an acceptance?
Well, it depends who you're talking to. So yes, on one hand, yes, there's much more of an acceptance, but of course, in the States, sadly, a whole bunch of the DEIA programs have been cut. But I'm going to say overall in the world, there's more of an acceptance and understanding. And in the DEIA space, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, there's a new term, and that's belonging. And I think that's the most important one, is belonging.
Wow, that is beautiful. And you are certainly doing wonderful work to help individuals and corporations adopt that mindset. This is incredible work you're doing, Sheri. And I'm so glad that we haphazardly met on the street. Another fun fact, as we got talking, we realized that we have a mutual friend, and
Yes,
that
we
would
do.
be Lori. And that's who I worked with at the start of earlier on in my career transition into public affairs. I worked with Lori, and she helped me get into the branch, actually. And lo and behold, I learned that you and Lori grew up together, CFB Trenton.
We grew up together at CFB Trenton. We ran track together in high school. We both applied to the military together at the same time. We were both accepted, and she went and I did not.
Wow. And now here we are, full circle. And the work you're doing was exactly where you were meant to be. That was your calling. And we are grateful that you followed it. Took you a while, but we all do that. It's never a linear path. It's that crazy zigzag.
Exactly.
That is where we're supposed to be. Sheri, what is one thing that listeners can do right now just to help them wherever they might be at in their transition, be it in their transition or just kind of dealing with their neurodivergent traits or maybe even a head injury?
Okay.
Oops.
I found this on the web for what is one thing that listeners.
My phone thought when I said Sheri, I was saying,
I have a dog named Gracie who I call Goo, and Google thinks I'm talking to it all the time when I say Goo. Get it? The one thing I would say is, what do you want instead? So if you're feeling stuck and frustrated, and instead of focusing on the negative, focus on what you want instead. So go back to the visioning and just vision what you want instead.
that's beautiful.
And I love whether it's Lego, collage, journaling, watercolor. I feel like creativity and making it visual, even Canva, all of that helps bring it to life. So go create it creatively, and that makes it a little bit more real. And then you might start taking those steps one at a time to get there.
Yeah. Could also reveal to us something that should always have been chasing, and we suppressed it. Yeah. Have that childlike spirit, as Robert Greene says in Mastery. Get back to your childlike spirit. Go play. Go find yourself.
Play. So there's 7 keys to neuroplasticity, creating new neural pathways, and one of those is play, humor, and movement. So I would say almost all my clients, when it comes down to it, they're looking for more joy and happiness. But we all are taking, this moment so seriously. Another question I might ask is, if you're at your 100th birthday party and you walked in and you heard everybody talking about you, what would you hear them saying? Because that often tells us what we should be doing, right? What we want to be doing. So, but yeah, play, humor, and movement. This moment doesn't have to be so tough and serious. It can also be joyful, and we want our lives to be joyful.
Well, I'm filled with joy, Sheri, that we connected. We had this conversation. I am so grateful for your work, and that I have the platform for which I can spread that knowledge and tell our listeners where they can find you.
Thank you so much, Mary.
All right, we'll get your link in the show notes. Thank you again, Sheri.
My pleasure.
Great conversation with Sheri. Sheri and I actually met haphazardly. She was walking down my street with a dog. She had been visiting her dad, and I had my grandpuppy, Lenny, a little long-haired dachshund, super cute. And lo and behold, we struck up a lovely conversation because, dogs collide. That often happens. And when I learned about the work that Sheri was doing, I had told her that my podcast episodes in the past regarding PTSD, neurodivergent traits, ADHD, they all seem to be garnering a lot of attention. And how wonderful it would be to have her on the show because of her skill sets as a life coach, and in particular with a focus on these key areas. And you have heard me say this a million times. Menopause is the time of the great reveal. These things will come to surface. So this conversation was really fitting. It fits in with the trends I'm seeing, the popularity in the podcast topics, and certainly it fits in with what I've been sharing about Ayurvedic principles around menopause. So many impactful, positive, powerful moments that Sheri had shared. And here's a quick summary of my key takeaways. First, I think Sheri's story is amazing. She went from high-powered corporate job, many of us have done that, through a life-changing brain injury and ended up building a coaching practice that's all about helping neurodivergent people thrive. I love that. As I always say too, our mess is our message. Her story is a real reminder that life isn't a straight line, and sometimes the detours lead us exactly where we're meant to be. We talked a lot about menopause and bringing up neurodivergent traits like ADHD, autism. And if you have had a concussion, certainly during the luteal phase, you can be symptomatic for a lot longer. And then, of course, with the hormonal shifts during menopause, lovely things happen. And that's certainly an experience of mine. And so we go through years of trying to fit in, mask, hide, pretend, shove it away. But I just think that is quite wild how many women are getting diagnosed later in life and how menopause does make those traits absolutely impossible to ignore. It's like screaming at you, deal with me, pay attention to me. I think it's a beautiful invitation also to go deeper and get to really know who you are. And Sheri's approach to coaching is so compassionate. She really meets people where they are at and helps them move forward, no matter how fast or slow the process is. I love their point about how play, movement, and creativity aren't just for kids. They're key to building new pathways in our brains and finding more joy, even when things are tough. And one thing that struck me, if you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, try focusing on what you want instead of what's not working. Get creative, journal, doodle, play, tap into your childlike spirit, tap into what's ever coming up, lean into your intuition. Quit that job, find a new passion. I'm speaking from personal truth. But always remember this, it takes courage to make a change. And that's always the first step, the biggest, boldest step. Honestly, this episode felt like a big permission slip to be kinder to ourselves, embrace our quirks, and just find joy wherever we can. If today's insights resonated with you, I'd love for you to be a part of our growing community of menopause disruptors. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening right now. And if you know someone who can benefit from these conversations, please share this episode. Sometimes a simple act of sharing can be the first step in someone's healing journey. And hey, if you're ready to take the next step in your menopause journey, I'm here to support you. You can find all my services, including my comprehensive menopause intelligence digital course, one-on-one coaching programs, and workplace education services at mlcoaching.com. It's in the show notes. Want to stay connected and get regular doses of menopause wisdom? Follow me on Instagram at Menopause Disruptor Podcast, where I share tips, insights, and real conversations about navigating this transformative phase of life. Let's continue to disrupt this menopause conversation together. Remember, midlife should be the best life, and it will be. Namaste.